Hello friends, hello YouTube, how are you guys doing? Rainbow here with another Let's Build Nerf mod tutorial video guide thingy. Today we're building the Saturn lever action kit by Shanye. This kit has been about for some time and you definitely know it from the short video I made, which is this one. If you haven't, if you want to watch it, the link's in the description. And yes, so a customer approached me saying, do you have like an instructional video on how to put this together? And I was like, no, I don't have one, so I'm just gonna make one. So here it is. This kit in particular is a special kit. It's for my friend Alpha from the German Nerf mod community. So Alpha, if you're watching this, that's your kit. Already have it, I know. But there you go. And now this is going to be a step-by-step tutorial on how to put this kit together. The assorted hardware will look differently depending on what you have, so I'm not going to go through it bit by bit. I'm just going to mention what you need where. The printed parts will look differently depending on what you got. So for instance, if you haven't gotten the Rainbow Mods&Props and Shanye massive foregrip, then don't worry about this. And so, but overall it's going to cover all the bases. Before we start, let's quickly look over what's on the table, what you need. As I said, the hardware and parts will vary depending on what you've got. You'll definitely need a Phillips head screwdriver, a bunch and assortment of Allen keys, which is also this. Optional tool is a thread cutter M3. If you have one of those, this is going to make your life easier. You don't need it, but if you have it, it's going to make your life easier. A hammer, maybe, depends on tolerances and things. Maybe you want a hammer. It's always good to have a hammer. And then obviously you need some glue. I either use, because I always get asked what kind of glue I use, I either use Uhu Kraft or Uhu Alplast, which is especially good for plastic, and that's generally good for anything. So that's really up to you which one you want to use. I don't have, I'm probably just gonna use this one. We'll see. You could potentially use some silicone grease as well, for wherever there is plastic on plastic parts moving, just make it more smooth. You don't have to, that is optional. And then obviously we got the 3D printed parts, so we got the lever, we got all the connecting bits and bobs. These pieces are for connecting the carbon rods to the stock. With the carbon stock we have the stock part, the cheek rest and the grip obviously. The carbon parts are, this one is for the lever, this one is the side piece of connecting the lever action to the actual prime mechanism, and then these two are for the carbon stock. And then over here the massive foregrip, which is going to be placed on the massive hole where the pump grip used to be, and two Piccadilly rails that are optional with this kit. So now that we have been over everything, let's start with the most obvious one, the heat inserts. If you have chosen to do the heat inserts yourself, you're going to watch this. If you have the heat inserts already set, then just skip to the next part. There are two M5 heat inserts for the stock going in these parts, and then there are several M3 heat inserts. They go into the side of the grip here for the Piccadilly rails, and they usually go into the cheek rest as well. But in this case I have accidentally, because I'm a fool, printed the older version of the cheek rest, and the only difference between this version and the new one is that this is using nuts instead of heat inserts. And so I'm not going to put heat inserts in here, I'm just going to use the nuts, but depending on which version you have, there's heat inserts here. Alright, with the iron heated up, let's make a bit of chaos. Start with this piece. So it's M3 heat inserts that go into here. Like so. And as always, with the heat inserts, light pressure till you feel them move, and then just gently push them down to not push them through, just make them flush with the outside. There we go, that's one. And there's a second, and obviously if you know how to do this by now from other blasters and builds, don't worry, it's exactly the same. The difference between this grip and the grip on the takedown kit, there is more room on the back here, so it isn't as crucial to stop with the level here. With the takedown that was crucial because this piece wasn't that thick, but with this one there is a bit more space, so if you push it down a little bit too far, it's not the end of the world. Alright, So that's those 4 installed. Now let's go to the big ones. As I said, the 5 ones go into these parts here. They are for attaching the carbon rods to the back of the stock. You want to flip those over and then they go in the back here. Whoops. Now there is a special heat insert M5 thing, but I don't really want to swap, which is why I'm going to use this. But because this goes in too deep, I have to sort of put it on the side here of the table. So if you're wondering why I'm out here, because the hot tip will otherwise damage the table here. With the massive heat inserts, they take a little longer to heat up, so just be patient. So with these also, it doesn't really matter that they're point blank flush. They should be in there securely, but because you're not going to be able to see them later in the build anyways, it doesn't really matter too much if they look really neat or not. Alright, there we go. Should be straight though. That was a little bit on an angle. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the screw that's meant to be in there afterwards. Just screw it in and make sure that it goes through as it should. There we go. Okay. So I did fuck up the placement just a little bit. It was a little bit on an angle. So taking the screw and put it all the way through the printed part to make sure that it can travel all the way through, and then you're fine. You don't have to mess with the heat insert itself too much. Alright, awesome. Now, as I said, normally with this there would be 2 heat inserts here as well, but because I'm an idiot and I printed the wrong file, there isn't any to be installed at this stage. So with this one, it is an M3 knot right here. That should be sort of on there. There are 2 M3 by 14 screws like that. They are for the cheek rest. So just put this through here and have it connect to the nut. And then sort of pull. Make sure the nuts align correctly and then sort of pull it down into the printed part. Make sure this connects. There we go. Alright. Now these are in place as we need them later on. Don't pull it too hard without the tube being in there because you risk this breaking. But if you're not 100% sure, you can put this in here. Alright, now with the tube in here, you can pull it closer until the nut sits in here flush, just like so. This doesn't have to hold much by itself, so you know, don't stress it too much. Just one thing with the carbon rods, when you take them out of the plastic, you want to be careful. For one, there's a little bit of carbon dust on it from the cutting, and also there might be some little carbon threads poking out here. What I like to do is take a piece of tissue and just slowly and without any major force run it around the edges. So you're going to get rid of those nasty little carbon bits and bobs, as well as the dust, because you don't want to have the carbon stuck in your fingers, because that is nasty. There we go. And then just make sure to chuck this out. Next up, we're taking these 2 guys, because then they can sit on the side and wait till we're done with the rest. There is 1 M3 nut that goes into here, so it's kind of the same thing. Align it, drop it in, done. Now, depending on print tolerances and on the nut that you have, some are a little bit thicker, some not. This one is fairly loose, to be honest, so make sure to not lose it. But put these aside for now. When putting this together, I always like to start with the handle and the stock first, because that is where we need to glue parts, and that should be secured and cured when we are assembling the rest of the blaster. So pick up the handle, and before you glue in the carbon rods, I would prepare these holes here. You have 4 M3 set screws like this. And they go in here and they're gonna secure this grip to the blaster. And I'll show you where in a second. And the most important thing is though, these screw in 3D printed plastic. Now if you have a thread cutter handy, this is where this comes into play. So it's an M3 thread cutter, and you can pre-cut the threads for these set screws to make your life a little easier. You don't have to, but you can. If you do this, just cut the threads until the tip of the thread cutter pokes out on the inside, just about so. So not all the way through, to leave a little bit of resistance. I've already prepared this on 3 of the 4 holes. but I wanted to show you this on that remaining one. If you do not have a thread cutter, don't worry, you can still screw it in here. It's just going to take a little bit more force. But if you have access to a thread cutter, you want to just make sure to just cut in here nice and easy until you see the tip of the thread cutter poking out on the inside. Not there yet. Just about there yet. I don't know if you can see this. Probably not, because the lighting is way bad. But yeah, you can put your finger down here carefully. You can feel it coming out to the hole on the inside. And then you reverse. Don't just pull it out, because otherwise you thread through it, obviously. And that is what you need this for. Now this is prepared. You could put the set screws in already, but you don't actually have to, so we're going to leave this to the end. The way the set screw will work is the moment they are all the way in, so you can't feel them on the outside anymore, that's enough. They are sticking out, like if you look at this, if they're in that far, they are sticking out about that much on either side, which is enough to hold on. Next, we're going to glue these two carbon rods into here. As I said, there's different kind of glues that you could use. I use either one of these two. In this case, I am going to use this one. I have several of these ready to get rid of the excess glue. Now, this just fits in here like this. So if you put glue on the inside of your carbon, that will just sit on the inside, and that's all fine. I also like to put some glue in here, which will then be on the outside. But if you put too much, it's just going to spill over on the outside here. And you want to clean that up as good as you can. All right, let's go. So put some on here, not too much. And put some on the inside of that carbon piece. If you have a little bit more on here, it doesn't really matter, because this is only going to spill into the carbon, and that's fine. You can drag it a little bit onto the edge if you want, but honestly don't need to, because you've just covered this there. And then you put this together, like so. That's all it is, that's all the magic. Depending on the curing time of your glue, you might want to have this sit like this a little while. This glue cures pretty quickly, so I do not have to worry. I can already feel it sticking. So I'm just going to go straight up to the next one. This together, like so. It's all the way in, making sure that there is not a lot of glue on the outside. There we go. Yeah, that's fine. Don't forget to close your glue. That's this, and now you want to leave this sit until the glue is cured. You can, if you're unsure if it all works, you can just sort of put this together like so. And you see, that's all nice and easy. It's designed so there's enough tolerance in here that even if there's a little bit off, it should still work. But on the other hand, there's not much tolerance in here, so that should all be good. Alright, we're gonna set this aside for now so it can cure. There is another one where we need potentially a little bit of glue, which we can do while we wait for this. These are the lever handles, and then that's where this carbon piece comes in place. This is put in here. You will need 4 of these pins and also 4 of these screws. You can also add some glue to this if you really want to, because you never actually have to open this again. However, this means if you break this piece, then you're going to have a hard time to get the carbon out and replace this. But let's assume that you don't break it, you could glue this down. But you do not have to. What I like to do is just put a little bit of glue on the very inside here, just there. So it doesn't spill out on this side, because that would look real ugly. Trust me, I'm speaking from experience. Right, just a little bit of glue right there. Do not put any glues in the holes up the top. Now what you're going to do is you're going to set this down like this. Put it in place, make sure that there's no glue spilling out here. And then you take one of the pins, which should easily go all the way through. And this is why you have a hammer. If there's some 3D print debris at the bottom of the holes in the printed part, you might just want to give these just a tiny little tap. Done. Okay, not more than this. Now we're going to get the next part, which is going to be sitting on here just like so. And same thing, you can get some glue on the inside here if you wanted to. And that's it for the glue. And now you have to align this with the correct holes like this. There we go. Done. Make sure there's no glue spilling out on either side. And that's that. And to secure this even more, and this is why I said you don't really need the glue, you have these 4 M2 by 12 millimeter screws. They're really small. You take your screwdriver and you put them in place. They should easily drop through the 1/2, and then remember that you're screwing these into plastic, so do not over tighten them. Once you feel them tighten up, that's about as tight as you want them. Right, there we go, handle done. This can also sit over there now. The next thing we will look at is, if you have a glue that's cured really quickly, this should be almost okay. Assuming that you're not going to drop this while you're doing the next step, you can continue working on this one. Otherwise, you know, leave this a little bit longer, come back to it later. Put on the cheek rest on the top part. You don't have to secure it yet if you're not 100% sure on where you want it. Just so it doesn't fly off, secure these screws just a little, like this, just so it doesn't go anywhere. Okay, now, the next bit, we need those 2 M5 screws. They're going to come through the back here, like this. And then on the inside, you'll need these rings first, one here and one here. And then you got these up the top. And the way this works is, as you can probably tell, when you pull in the screw, it'll squeeze onto this ring, stretching it out just a little, and therefore friction fitting this piece to those 2 carbon rods. Again, also do not overdo it, but you do want to have these tight. Make sure there's a smaller and a bigger one. The bigger one obviously has to be on the top. You want to secure these almost all the way. So, like, I find it's best when they're already sort of gripping, because then when you start tightening them down, they're not turning with the piece itself. They're not wobbly anymore, but they also haven't pushed out the printed piece yet, so you can still get them in easily. Make sure that this is all the way down. Make sure that this is up. Yes, okay, make sure it looks like this. And then you want to tighten them just like that. Carefully, do not break anything. Like so. And especially if your glue is not completely cured yet, be careful like that. Okay? Now, if your glue is not completely dried yet, do not pull. Just hold this here and try to pull this one. Hold this here, try to pull this one. Should be fine. This is actually very secure. And because you're never actually pulling the blaster on this, you're actually just sort of shouldering it like this. So you'll be fine. So there we go. Stock done. Next up, we're going to prepare everything else for the lever action part. So get these back. Now these 2, this is where we connect the blaster. And this is going to sit like this. For these 2 screws, you're going to use the original Nerf screws from the grip. And what you want to do here, take one M3 nut, align it so it can sit in there. Nice and easy. It should be fairly snug, and it should definitely be flush. Okay. Then you take one of these carbon pieces and an M3 by 10 countersunk screw like this. And now I trust you that you know what to do. There's one side that looks like this and one side that looks like this. This is a countersunk screw. You drop it in here, okay? And yes, then you're going to go from the outside on this one. Make sure to have these tight, but don't have them too tight. They need to be able to move. If I lock them down all the way, this doesn't move, okay? There has to be a little bit of movement, a very little bit. Right here, get in there. Another one of these on the outside, and screw them together. I always like to pull them all the way to make sure the nut is in all the way, and then sort of open them a little bit again to have this little bit of motion. Next up, we have the same thing. We're going to connect these, and the difference is these will connect on the inside. So now these ones don't matter which side they're on. So with these ones, they are different side-wise. You already know how the screw is going to go. It's going to go outwards, and you want to connect an inside one with an outside one. So like this. You can see how this would be wrong, right? Because you can't really connect it here. Same goes for this M3 nut. Drop it in here like this. And keep your finger on there so it doesn't pop out again. And then screw it in. And again, make sure, like I've completely tightened this and there still is a lot of movement. So that's what I said. It's just got to be a little bit of motion that's been able to do. So there we go. This is one part, and then we're going to do another one. So this is how it should look like. If you look at the blaster later on, the NK is on the right side. The Shanye is on the left side. Now it's about time that we get ourselves a Saturn. So for this case, I have a fully boxed, not opened Saturn right here. And I'm going to take it out. It is not an unboxing because we all know, or roughly know, what a Saturn should look like. But here we go. As you can see, completely in box. Right, if you have a Saturn that is already assembled, you obviously have to take off the stock. But there's more that we have to do. We have to take this off. But compared to the takedown kit, we do not have to do any other modifications to the blaster, which is great. So let's take this off real quick. Get our screwdriver. Now these two screws in the bottom here, inside the grip, you do not need. You can keep them with whatever bin of screws you have. These ones up here you need. So carefully take them out, put them on the side. You will need those. Right, now this should be able to come off. Put it on the side. Flip this over. And take those out. Remember to keep those. Awesome. Now, as you can see here, this is where the grip will sit, a very snug fit like this. And now you're going to secure this with these two screws. But as you can see, there is no wobble here, there's no play. So with all the set screws in just under the surface, it is way enough to connect in these two little things right there. But because it makes it easier to get everything else installed, I'm going to do this part last. Remember these two little ones that we set aside. Make sure that this one still has its nut in it. You have an M3 by 25mm screw, which is just one, which is for this. You're going to figure out the right side. They're going to look like that. They should be fairly snug on here, just like so. And now this one, yep, you keep your going the other side. Make sure this keeps the nut in place. Now put the screw in here. Should go all the way through. There we go. That's the wrong one. That one. And then just put this in place. Nice and tight. There we go. Now if you find that the end of this screw is sticking out just ever so slightly, I've had this happen to other kits before, you can either file this screw down a little bit or just open it up, back it out just ever so slightly a little bit. This piece will still be in place, it's not a problem, but you want to make sure that this is flush and the screw is not sticking out to the top, because this has to move over it. If you're not sure if the screw is interfering with the piece, you can just put it here, just slide it over, and there should be no friction whatsoever. So this one in the front, these two align with this here, just like that. And now you're going to take the Nerf screws that you've already had and attach this. Important thing here, you're screwing back into plastic. So you want to take your screw, you're going to find a screw hole, you go left until you find the thread, like this. Nope. There. And then you should be able to screw this in without any force whatsoever. Again, go left. There we go. And then it's nice and easy. Done. This just has to be tight. Done. Okay. Now the same on the other side. Put this in place. Click it down like this. You're going to be here. And these two screws, left, and nice and easy and tight. Same again, left and tight. Done. Alright, with this setup we are almost at the final hurdle. Now before you put the screws in and secure this in here, I would recommend you put the missing M3 nuts in here and the M4 nut in there, because these are fairly tight. If you're having a hard time getting these in, it's probably because there's 3D print debris, or just because it's an overhang print, that there's some wobbly edges around here which prevent the nut from dropping in there. There's very, very little tolerances on purpose, so you don't lose this. What you can do at this stage is just take out this one here, because that is going to be your little secret helper. And now what you do is you take that screw, you put it through here, which should be nice and easy, and sticking out just a little bit up the top. You screw the nut on just until it holds like this, okay? Then you make sure to align this the way the nut should be. And now you just make sure to keep your finger on here. Screw this in without the nut popping out on this side until the screw reaches the plastic. And then you're going to use physics, because now when you keep turning, you're going to pull in the nut, and then it's going to be securely on the inside. So you're just going to keep turning. You're going to watch the nut disappear until it's solid. And now you're going to unscrew this again, and the nut should stay right in there. Now we have the two nuts in place like here. The M4 should actually just drop in. That shouldn't be too tight. Yep, there we go. So let's go put it all back together. Remember to put your little helper screw back in here. As I said, make sure that it is flush on the other side. So we're going to put this together. Now we can take the very long M4 screw, which comes in from here, through that hole, through this hole here. You can see that one right there. And then comes out on the other side, and obviously goes into this. Come on. Right there. Try not to poke out the M4 nut on the other side. And then have this connect. You do not have to over tighten this. Okay, this should be tight but not too tight. These two shouldn't move sideways, but they should be able to easily move this way. You're you're going to try this with the full thing assembled, and then if you feel like your prime is too crunchy, you can loosen this a little bit. Okay. Last but not least, let's get the handle on, and then we're almost done. We have two very long M3 screws. The shorter one goes on the bottom, the other one on the top, or right and left. The handle goes on like this, and if you can't get it in between those two gaps, then the M4 screw is too tight and needs to be opened just a little bit. So there's a little bit more play here, and then this should be an easy fit. There we go. Taking the longer screw up the top hole here, and now you got to find a hole in this, a hole in this, a hole in this, which theoretically should be aligned, but I know that they're not always perfectly aligned. Now at this stage we're not screwing into the nut yet. We're going through here and having some resistance with the carbon, so make sure this is light and breezy, but once you hit the nut you might have to go a little bit left to get the threads. Now we're through. Feels about right. Yes, awesome. You can see the screw coming out here. Now these again should be tight, not too tight though. You can always tighten them up later. Same goes for this one. Now put them in here. This is tight. If these two aren't tight, this will wobble right here. Okay, so these two can be tight. That is still moving. That is all good. Final stretch. Let's put the last stuff together. By now, your glue should be cured, depending on the glue that you use. I don't know which one you use. You're going to slide this one onto here like this. Now this should be looking like that. Now we're going to take a smaller Allen key and put in the M3 set screws. As I said, if you have cut your thread, just find that thread, and then it should be nice and easy goings. If you haven't pre-cut that thread, it is just a little more work. And let me do this way. I need a bigger table for mods like this. And as you can see, just about underneath the surface. Like this, okay? Just like that. And 3 times more. I'm gonna time lapse this so you don't get bored. All right, done. Now this is secure. This can't move. It's right on there. You're not gonna hurt yourself. Try and do this. Now is the time where you try the prime. Nice and easy. Goes in straight lines. You can check both sides. And again, if it feels a little bit too crunchy or something, loosen up this screw, maybe loosen up these. In order to loosen up these, you obviously have to take this apart again. So make sure that these are all right before you put them together. But that's all this. Last thing we have to install in this kit is the big ass grip to cover this size. Gonna put on the Picatinny rails later. So the way this grip works, it basically sits on here, just like this. All right, it does clip into place and is actually fairly secure. But because there are tolerances in the blasters, injection molded and things, just hammer shots and enough said, there is 2 ways to secure this grip. One, you can use an M4, M5 set screw through here to get into the other hole that's just underneath there, or you can use an M3 screw here to just secure it into the screw hole down here. They basically just sit in there and make sure that nothing goes anywhere. I'm gonna put an M3 by 14 down in that one hole just to make sure that we're good. Also, if you have a thread cutter, this will make your life easier. In this case, I did not cut the thread, just to show you that this also works without one. Okay, just like this. But this is basically just to secure this thing from falling off. But On my testing blaster, I didn't secure this at all, and I played several games without it moving an inch or even a millimeter. That's a good thing, an inch or a millimeter. So yeah, this one here, there's one here. This one is just fake. Don't worry about that one. Lastly, we're gonna take the rails. They are optional. They're gonna use 3 by 10 millimeter screws just here into the heat inserts that we have previously placed. As always with screws and heat inserts, you can use Loctite if you want. However, you know, depending on what you put on it, might be overkill. If you use those things a lot for, let's say, flashlights and all that sort of thing, I definitely recommend Loctite. If you don't, you know, don't worry. Easy, that one here. And done. Final screw done. This is, I don't even know if that's in a frame. Just about. I have to hold a diagonal, sort of. There we go. This is the Shanye lever action Saturn kit, fully installed with the grip and everything, and it's ready to go. It works beautifully, absolutely nice. You haven't seen me use this. Some will go like, why did we want this? So where you want this is in between these parts, and in between here. If you feel like that your prime is too crunchy. I haven't put this down because I always print the parts in that orientation, so this should be fine. But if you want to have it even smoother, if you feel this is a little bit too crunchy, you can just use some grease on these bits here, and then you're good. Alright, that's it. I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. I hope you have no trouble putting together your Shanye lever action kit for the Saturn. It's an amazing kit. It makes this blaster so much fun to use. I really, really like it. And other than that, if you have any other questions, you know, just put them in the comments. If you want to know where to get this kit, the link is in the description as well. I have several left of those, so if you want to get your hands on those, you still can. And yes, watch other stuff that's going to be coming to the shop pretty soon. And until I see you next time, happy modding, happy nerfing, love and sunshine.